So I've been playing the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection thanks to Lucasfilm Games and Aspyr, who sent me an early review copy of the game, and when I first booted up the Battlefront Classic Collection, I was greeted with this brand new start screen, which gloriously displayed both Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I immediately felt like a kid again seeing both of these games that I grew up with, and I went straight into a nostalgia trip down memory lane, revisiting the classic maps from both games, the different classes, the heroes, the villains, space combat, all while taking in the sights and sounds of Star Wars. After all, Star Wars Battlefront was my very first real introduction to Star Wars. Battlefront was the very thing that made me fall in love with Star Wars in the first place, and it's awesome to see it back again in this way. But is there more to this classic collection than just some nostalgia trip down memory lane? Absolutely yes. Not only have the graphics been upscaled with some really nice enhancements, but the game will be available on all consoles with full online multiplayer support when it releases on March 14th.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
So in this video, I'm going to give you my impressions of the game, talk about the graphical enhancements, and compare the new graphics to the original games. I'll also discuss the controls as well, which in my opinion feel much smoother than the originals, and I'll also show you some gameplay changes, including the fact that both Ventress and Kit Fisto are now available on all platforms when they used to only be available through DLC on Xbox. And I'll weigh in on what this new Battlefront Classic Collection could mean for the future of the Battlefront franchise. Will we get official DLC updates? Will we see further graphical upgrades? What does this mean for a potential Battlefront 3 game? So many questions. And now let's talk about the graphical differences you can expect in the game. First, both games have been upscaled within the Classic Collection compared to the original versions. You can really tell that Aspyr put effort into upscaling the many different textures, and I also noticed that the new games run incredibly smooth, much smoother than the originals, and this translates into the controls as well. Aiming and moving never felt so buttery smooth before. Then there's the other nice graphical enhancements too. On Coruscant, for instance, they've actually added reflective properties to some of the textures, like on the floor here, and then Camino has seen updated textures that are now much sharper with a more gray appearance, making it more accurate to the films. And the vehicles reflect lighting better too, with more advanced bump mapping from what I can tell, like on this snail take for instance. In comparison, the original version looks more flat, while the new Classic Collection snail tank has been upgraded with more reflective surfaces. And these are just a few examples of some of the graphical enhancements, but I think the biggest difference when compared to the original games is with the overall clarity, resolution, and optimization of this new Classic Collection. There's something still so charming about seeing these original graphics updated in the way that Aspyr has done it. It keeps the original games intact, and it definitely adds to that nostalgia factor for sure. And by the way, there's a new button on the menu called Quit to Launcher that launches you back to the main screen where you can choose between Battlefront 1 or Battlefront 2 to launch into. And Battlefront 2 for the PC has had its menus updated, which is definitely a good change, and no worries about Battlefront 1's classic menus because they've been upscaled and left intact. I mean, you gotta love the timeless menus from Battlefront 1. And I've got to talk about the multiplayer, which will be the heart of this game, of course. So regardless of the platform you're getting the Classic Collection on, you'll be able to play this game online with up to 64 other players. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the review, this is a huge deal for Lucasfilm Games and Aspyr to undertake the creation of brand new servers for every single console and PC. And to join a multiplayer match, you can either click on the Quick Match button, which will automatically matchmake you into a match, or you can click on the Join button to browse the server browser, which displays a list of available multiplayer games. You can also create your own multiplayer match as well and set all of the different options and parameters, including the name of your match, how many players per match you want, how many AI players to include, and you can even enable dedicated hosting and many more options per different game modes. And yes, in case you're wondering, you can even set a password for your match as well, so that way only people with the password can access your match. And now let's talk about the gameplay, shall we? So, from what I've experienced after playing nearly every single map and mode from both games in the Classic Collection, the gameplay is nearly identical to the original Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, and this is very good news indeed. Aspyr has made sure to keep everything intact without taking any liberties or unnecessary risks in changing the core gameplay. Thank goodness. And my favorite mode is definitely Conquest mode, so I spent most of my time there capturing command posts, taking out some unsuspecting enemies with my tank and various vehicles, causing chaos with my special units like the Magna Guard and Droideka, slashing enemies with heroes like Ayla Secura, General Grievous, and Darth Vader, just to name a few. And I revisited locations like Theed and Bespin platforms from the first game, some of my all-time favorite maps, and then I hopped into the second game and revisited another few of my all-time favorites, including Megiddo, Geonosis, Kashyyyk, and the two maps on Renvar, which of course are bonus maps in Battlefront 2 since they originally appeared in Battlefront 1. And I literally could not stop playing, and it was tons of fun experiencing both games under one collection and once again experiencing the differences between the two. And then there's the space battles in Star Wars Battlefront 2, where your goal is to destroy the other team's capital ship. You can still do everything you did in the original. You can take off from your capital ship's hangar, dogfight other fighters, attack the enemy's capital ship, and of course, land in the enemy's hangar and destroy the capital ship's systems from the inside. And I can't forget about the Hero Assault mode as well, which was complete chaos and tons of fun. And one big change they did to Hero Assault mode is that it is now available to play on all ground maps. I recommend playing on large maps like Megiddo and Coruscant, which are perfect battlegrounds for this type of mode, in my opinion. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, Aspyr has also added Ventress and Kit Fisto to all platforms, and this is actually a big deal because Ventress and Kit Fisto were only on Xbox back in the day as DLC, so this is a welcome addition for sure. And then there's the fan favorite mode Galactic Conquest, which allows you to attack planets across the galaxy and claim victory when the final planet has been captured. Now, unfortunately, this portion is not online and can only be played offline, but maybe someday we will see an online Galactic Conquest mode. And obviously there are many other game modes too, such as the single player campaigns in both games, with Battlefront 2's campaign letting you experience the events of the 501st, including Order 66. Then there's XL mode in Battlefront 2, which increases the number of units per team, and even modes like Capture the Flag and Hunt mode, which allows you to play with creatures like the Wampa. So as you can see, if you loved the original Battlefront games like I do, no worries here. The original gameplay we all love is still exactly as it was back in the day. And if you're new to the franchise, well, you're in for quite a surprise. Now, the only drawback that I've seen to this Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection is that it does not support crossplay at launch, but it only supports cross-gen play. So what this means is that PS4 players can play with PlayStation 5 players, Xbox One players will be able to play with Xbox Series X and S players, so those consoles will be able to play with each other since they're cross-gen, but it's not crossplay. So PlayStation players will not be able to play with Xbox players and so on. So that's the only disappointment. Now, Regardless though, I cannot wait to hop online with you all when the game releases for all platforms on March 14th, so I'm super excited still, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the future holds for the Battlefront franchise as a whole. So, will we eventually see an announcement for a Star Wars Battlefront 3 game, or will we see new DLC for the Star Wars Battlefront collection? So many different avenues they can take with this, so sound off in the comments, what would you like to see for the future of the Battlefront franchise? And by the way, I've also uploaded a comprehensive tips and tricks video for you all, which should be available on my channel right now, so be sure to click on the link in the description or on the screen to check it out. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for all things Star Wars Battlefront. I will see you all out on the battlefront, and may the Force be with you always.